Kodak Black's progression of his dreadlocks. Overall, Kodak Black has some really cool looking dreadlocks, and essentially they're wicks. Wicks is a very popular hairstyle for dreadlocks, especially in the southern region of the United States of America, typically down by the Florida area. It's also a little popular down in Atlanta as well. But let's go ahead and take a look at the progression, and to be honest, a lot has happened ever since he started them out, and there's actually some things that happen in the middle. So make sure you give this video a thumbs up and let's get straight into it. So at first glance, looking at his dreadlocks, it almost looks like he just has a bunch of pigtails on his head, and essentially that's what it is in the beginning stages of actually starting out wicks. There was even a point to where he looked like he just had some spikes on his hair, like almost Liberty spikes. And that's another way to start wicks as well. It's just creating really large sections, and it turns out to look like spikes if your hair isn't long enough to actually get into those sections, especially for how big they are. Because we're talking about, 4 to 5 inch sections versus a, ½ inch to an inch section for regular dreadlocks. But it is a very unique style. It's very cool. And like I said, a wick is essentially just a very thick dreadlock. It almost looks like freeform dreadlocks, but they are maintained. I can say that they're less maintained than actual, just traditional dreadlocks. Like if you were to go with crochet hooking or instant locking or interlocking or twisting with gel, it's very different. Although you can use twisting with gel with wicks, it's just a little different process. And one thing you have to keep in mind is that since it's a thicker section, you have more hair to work with, and with more hair, it makes it easier to lock up the hair. So I can bet you that wicks will actually have a quicker locking time than if you were to have traditional, ½ inch or an inch section. And to be honest, you can even go a smaller section with traditional dreadlocks. And one thing that we did notice, which I did a video on before, is that he actually had to cut off his wicks and then he ended up reinstalling them. And it's very interesting. Just because of how thick the wicks are, reinstalling them made it very interesting. Because it almost just looks like he has an afro at the roots and then he just has like these wicks attached to it, because that's essentially what's going on. And now we see that his hair is actually extremely long. One thing we'll notice about his dreadlocks is that he has like a sun-dyed or sun-bleached tip. Now this happens just from being out in the sun. Typically the tips will want to change color and become lighter over time, just because that's what the sun does to the hair. So it's really cool seeing that, especially with how dark his hair is. And I can definitely say that his wicks aren't like other people's wicks. And I don't know if that's just because he reattached them, but one thing you'll notice is they have kind of a freeform style to them. And of course, wicks already have that freeform look to them. But with his, you can see that some of his wicks have fingers at the tip of them, which essentially that's a Congo. And that's really the difference between a wick and a Congo. A wick is just a thick dreadlock, and a Congo is a thick dreadlock with finger-like dreadlocks at the tip. But one thing you will notice about his dreadlocks is that they've continued to get thicker over time. And that's one thing to take note of getting dreadlocks in general, is that over time, they just continue to get thicker and thicker and thicker. And that's just really part of the maturing process. It just takes time and they just continue to get thick. But it is cool seeing his wicks actually have some hang time, because for the longest, especially considering that they are thick, they want to just stand up the entire time. So this just goes to show that his hair is really heavy and it actually can hang now. And in this last photo, he kind of gives a Bob Marley kind of feel to his dreadlocks. And in this photo, you can really see what I'm talking about when it comes to looking like freeform dreadlocks. And it could be so that he's actually freeforming now. And one thing we will notice over time is if he is freeforming, then we will see some of these wicks start to combine with each other. And believe it or not, over time, freeform dreadlocks just continually want to combine. As long as they're still maturing, they always want to combine with what's next to it. So if your dreadlocks aren't fully mature and you're not maintaining them, so you're doing completely freeform, it's going to want to combine with whatever's next to it. But overall, it's really cool to see that he kept this hairstyle going, because I know a lot of people thought it was so weird in the beginning stages, but I feel like now it's paying off. I think overall the whole entire process was paying off the entire time. I think some people just lack vision when it comes to people's hairstyles or their styles in general. But you guys comment down below what you think about Kodak Black's dreadlocks. It's going to be interesting to see where he goes in the future. If he continues to grow these, it's going to be really cool. Also comment down below who you guys would like to see next. Also guys, subscribe if you are new. I make videos